You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGackie, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. There have been a lot of episodes of the podcast lately, and that's because I have a mountain of content I'm sitting on. So I'm trying to put it out there in a more timely fashion than just simply the once a week. So there is a ton. If this is the first episode you've listened to in a while, you might want to go back a few episodes and check out some of the other ones as well. I've got episodes with Paul Reed Smith up. I've got a fantastic episode with Daniela Gottardo and Gretchen Menn where they actually played some music. It was great. And I've got one with my good friend Ryan from Fuzzrocious. All that has come out in the last week and a half, plus the one you are hearing right now with a Portland pizza legend. That's right. It's taken this long, but I finally got a pizza legend from the local area on the show, Scott Rivera of Scotties Pizza Parlor. He makes incredible pies, and he has an extensive background as a musician as well, which I am noticing is a trend with lots of pizza people. Well, at least with Portland pizza people, or at least with Portland restaurant-based people. He's got a great story. He makes incredible pies here in Portland, so if you are ever in the area, you definitely need to make sure you stop by Scotties and get yourself a pie. It will make you happy. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. We get into his musical roots. We talk about how he started his business. We talk about the struggles that pretty much always pop up whenever you're pursuing your passion. I think you're going to enjoy this. So without further ado, let's get into this episode right now. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, maybe? I don't know. I can't talk today. Guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Scott Rivera of Scotties Pizza Parlor. This is exciting for me. I've been a fan of this guy's work for a long time, and now we're here in the Shred Shed. We're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about pizza and just whatever else comes up. What's up, dude?
What's up? It's really freaking cool to be here in the Shred Shed.
I love that I'm being able to do this in person more now. That was starting to become a thing pre-lockdown. Everything was remote, pretty much. There was a few exceptions to that. Pretty much everything was remote. And then I started getting to go do some backstage stuff, and people would come back here as it became more of a thing. And then I was like, oh, this is great. I can do in-persons now. And then, no more.
End of that.
But, of all the local people, that have come on lately, you're the second person who also, works or owns a restaurant. There's a food thing going on here.
Okay.
I'm just bringing the local food people in.
Who was the last?
That was Chef Ricky Bella from Palomar.
I missed that one. I love that spot.
Yeah, it's a great spot. He's a great dude. Big metalhead. So
I'm going to go back to it.
Yeah. You're going to like that one.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, it's good to have you here. There's so much I want to get into. Obviously, this is pretends to be a music-based podcast, and but it's really a pizza podcast, man. So
it sounds like it.
Here we are. But you sent me a bunch of stuff from your old band. You sent me a bunch of stuff from some black metal bands that you worked with, and I want to get your musical story, because I'm finding, especially in Portland and maybe across America or the world, there's this very intense connection between musicians and food. And it isn't just because we need food to survive. It's like people who work in restaurants tend to have some sort of musical connection somewhere. It's almost universal. So I'm curious to see how all this played out for you and get your story.
Yeah, I've totally seen that connection. I think it's a real thing. For me, it's funny, the first thing that comes to mind as far as connecting music and food is the math side of it, but maybe that's because I'm a baker and I deal with like baker's percentages and all my dough formulas and stuff. But anyway, here we are. Yeah, as far as my music story, I think it goes back strongly to both my parents. My mom is this kind of wacky French Canadian lady who actually went to it's not Juilliard. One sec. She went to music school for
Berkeley?
Cello.
Okay.
And was like really serious. But it was more under like the pressure of her parents. So she dropped out. But she kind of had that musical thing. Meanwhile, my dad, his whole life since like a kid, was a musician and great piano player and was really deep in the New York like salsa and Latin music scene.
I've seen some pictures of your dad too. He looked like a stud.
Yeah, great bushy mustache.
Yeah.
And so he was half Italian and half Puerto Rican.
Oh, nice.
So I think that explains the mustache.
Yep.
And then, you know, he was raised on his Puerto Rican side. And that's, I think, just that culture is so rich and the music is so strong. And so, yeah, I grew up with music happening a lot in the house. We had like a baby grand piano that had come through generations in my mom's family. And my dad was always gigging and going out and playing in these like big, like 9-piece bands with full horn sections and, you know, 3 or 4 percussion and so on. And yeah, I think it was just always around. I first started playing. He like taught me the Mission Impossible theme on the piano. And from there on, it was just like, all right, hold on. You can like hear something and recreate it on this instrument, you know? And I don't know. As I grew up, I started to just sort of find my way towards instruments that were cooler. So started playing guitar and yeah, my dad was just super, super supportive all the way through. He was always, you know, working hard to set me up with the, you know, sickest whatever guitar or pedal or amp or something. Just really encouraging. And we would like do little garage band recording sessions of just like covering some of my favorite songs at the time. I didn't send you these, but I've got some like Coldplay covers.
We got a
little
those.
Maroon 5.
Okay, so I was about to ask you about what era this was, but I got a vibe for it now.
Oh, yeah. This is strong, like, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, I think, when I started to get into like recording. And I think that was really exciting for me because I did play a lot of different instruments and I always wanted to be like my own band. So I think with recording and tracking, it was like, cool, I can just layer stuff and have fun. And, you know, meanwhile, I was also into like looping pedals and stuff like that. And so, yeah. And then, through high school, ended up messing around in a couple of bands and kind of found myself into in the local like punk scene in Albuquerque. So I moved away to New Mexico when I was small and I would go back and forth to New York every summer. So by this time, my late teens, I was in Albuquerque and just playing like pop punk, hardcore.
It's got to be a big difference culturally, Albuquerque and New York City, right?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, there's a little bit of that Latin connection because there's a lot of like really deep history in like Hispanic culture and Native culture, and it was like just cool to be close to that. But still very different. Yeah. And I think, are we good?
I'm just making sure. I forgot to set where I could see the time.
Nice. Yeah. So that anyway, I was like in that sort of like 18 to 20 or so, when I was like really playing in a lot of bands and recording and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so at what point, this is something I also asked Ricky, because he was different scene, different vibe, but like very similar, like playing in bands. That was like the thing, you work and then you go play in bands because that's what you really care about.
Yeah.
So similarly, that was what I did as well. But at what point, obviously you developed a serious passion for pizza at some point. It's not something you get into by accident, generally speaking. So how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it was about leaving New York and being in New Mexico, where there was pizza, but it was not the same. And I was really used to having like such easy access to this like really good pizza kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And, when I was younger, under 18, my parents were like flying me back and forth every summer. I'd spend like the whole summer with my dad and just eat all the pizza, all the Chinese food, everything like that
everything New
was
York.
Good there,
Yep.
And yeah, I think by the time I turned 18 and suddenly like was a little more on my own as far as like, when's the next time I'm ever going to get to New York? It started to sink in that it could be a while before I was able to eat like a decent slice
This
again.
is still in New Mexico.
This is in New Mexico. And I was like, I got to figure out how to make this.
Because I'm not going to be able to buy it anywhere.
No. Like there were some places around and, we found the best pizza around, but it still wasn't hitting that same like nostalgic nerve.
I understand. I've said this on the podcast many times, but I had some friends go to New York for vacation and they come back like the pizza. I'm like, I always heard about the pizza culturally. And I was always like looking at it and I didn't fully grasp it at the time. This was, 10, 12, maybe 15 years ago, actually. Yeah. I didn't really get it. I was like, it's pizza though. Like, how different can it be? It's pizza. Because I'd only had the very mediocre things that were available here at the time.
Yeah.
Prior to places like yours showing up. So I didn't understand. I went to New York, but I went to New York City, and it was the first slice I had with some random place I didn't even remember. I was like, oh, I get it. I understand now.
Yeah.
And I was going in hardcore skeptical. I was like, come on. It's pizza.
And you just got a slice somewhere.
Some random place. And then we went to Joe's shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
And I remember that was like, oh, and then just spiraled out of control from there.
Yeah. Oh,
so
so good.
There's something to it. It's not just, I had no nostalgia for it, right? I didn't grow up with that. I grew up here.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it hit a button.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, oh, there's levels to this game.
Yeah. And there really is like something to that type of pizza, and just I think it's a little bit about like the perspective of like the people making it in that area, and especially that there's been people doing it for 100 years or more.
Sometimes in the same place with the same oven.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very different from anything else, but it's interesting to hear that could hit so hard for you having never been there too. So yeah.
What really started it for me was there's a place here in Oregon City, actually, Mi Familia. I don't know if you've been there or heard about it.
Yeah, I got to put it on my list.
Oh, you got to put that on your list.
Yeah,
and it showed up about 15 years ago.
Cool.
Maybe a little longer. I'm not sure exactly the timeline. And I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. Let's go. And I went there and was, ooh, these are expensive. And we've been, I don't know how many thousands of dollars I've spent at that place at this point. It was like, obviously it was worth it and still continues to be worth it. But that was a light bulb moment for me too. It was like, this is what it can be.
Cool.
Like,
yeah.
So
yeah, it's it seems so simple and a lot of people take it for granted, but yeah, it's pretty special.
I've heard that on the podcast. Like, well, there's no bad pizza. And I was like, there used to be a place in St. John's.
There was that one.
And it was genuinely terrible.
Christmas Eve, 2005. I will never forget. It was the only place open that my dad and I could find at like midnight. There was a neon sign. It said world's best pizza.
Where
I
was
kid
this?
you not. This was in New York.
Okay.
Manhattan, Midtown, I want to say.
Wow. Okay.
Which any New Yorkers now who've heard me say Midtown are like, oh, well, of course. But no, people like to hate on Midtown pizza.
I get it.
But yeah, it was so late and I was so hungry and I wanted pizza and I was being that bratty kid. Like, I want a slice. And I think I also couldn't understand that maybe I couldn't get a slice. I was like, no, like there's a place.
We're in New
Come
York.
on, just
There's
keep
a place.
driving. Yeah. And my dad and I went in and we, the place was empty. The pizza looked weird. And we were like, okay, let's get a slice. And, our system was like, especially at a new spot, it's like you get a slice, and if it's good, and you're still hungry, you go back and get another slice. It was always like one at a time. But then like if the pizza was really good, you'd go back for the third slice. And that was like the highest compliment to the spot.
Yep.
This place, my dad and I looked at each other and we were like, yeah, can you cut that in half? So we each had half a slice and we took a bite and just kind of silently like looked at each other chewing like, I don't think this is it.
Right.
And I think I finished my little half and my dad gave me the like, you want another one? And I was like, no, I'm good.
No.
That was it. Bad pizza exists.
It does exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. There used to be a place in St. John's. I have never uttered its name on the podcast. I'm going to continue not to, even though it's out of business, just out of respect.
Yeah.
Some semblance of I don't know why I have respect for it, but
it
it was the only place that would deliver to
my stuff.
my former employer. And so we got it a lot. And I got to the point where I would just take all the toppings off and put them on a plate and throw the crust in the garbage. It was that bad.
Oh, that's sad.
It was like, this is horrendous.
Yeah.
I could do better without looking at the ingredients and just throwing stuff in a bowl.
Yeah.
It was just so bad.
Yikes.
And so I'd just eat the toppings off. And people were like, oh, you're trying to be healthy? I'm like, no, this is terrible. This is terrible pizza. So,
yeah, it's possible to do it wrong, for sure. Yeah.
But we got a little bit sidetracked. So we were talking about bad pizza. But so you had this longing for a literal slice of home.
Yep.
And you started making pizza just for yourself, or did you have intentions on doing something else with it?
Oh, purely selfish. I was like, I need a good slice of pizza. And so I started with, I was living with my girlfriend at the time, now wife of over 13 years.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. And she had like her mom's Better Homes like cookbook. And I was like, all right, let me start here. Pizza.
Gotta have
Let's go.
somewhere.
Yep. Totally. Made the dough. I don't know, threw it together, kind of messed around with the sauce, got some cheese, yada, yada. Not great. Really bad, in fact. Talk about bad pizza. It was like, oh, no, this isn't it. And so I think that made me only more determined because it was like, I've had like bad pizza that's better than this.
Okay.
So,
this one fateful night in 2005.
Right? But yeah, I was like, no, I gotta figure this out. And I took to the internet. This was like, 2005, 2006-ish. So not a whole lot out there as far as like deep rabbit holes on stuff. But there was a forum called pizzamaking.com.
Okay.
It's still up there. Where all the pizza nerds would get together. And so I got in there. I found this blog from this guy in Atlanta who like loved Neapolitan pizza and was like on this journey to like perfect it in his home oven. And that really kind of lit me up because I was like, I don't have a pizza oven. I think you need a pizza oven. How do you do it in your home oven? And this guy, his name's Jeff Ferrazzano, he had figured out how to basically trick his home oven into running on the cleaning cycle, which was like, it would just turn it all the way up. I think it would get to like 800 degrees or something. And normally it's supposed to lock the door, like for safety.
For sure.
You know?
Sure.
But I think he either like cut the lock or something so that he could then put his pizza stone in there and bake a pie, like a Neapolitan 90-second, you know, serious pizza. And he was doing it, and I just like was so,
Don't do that,
I think, inspiring.
Don't
do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
For safety.
So I did that. And I definitely broke an oven in an apartment that we lived in. It was that's another story. It was only a few days before Thanksgiving. We were cooking our own Thanksgiving that year. It was a whole thing. I don't recommend it.
And the listeners know, be careful with your ovens, because I cooked a turducken for Thanksgiving one year, and that turned out great.
Wow.
Got the turducken from Sheridan Fruit Company here in town.
Nice. Yeah.
Turducken's greasy.
Uh-huh.
Grease will go down to the bottom of your oven.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hit the clean button. Or you will be smoked out of your home. For a month right before Christmas.
Yeah.
You maybe don't do it, but maybe your significant other does while you're recording a podcast out here with the guys from Old Blood Noise and Devers Pedal Company.
No.
Maybe that happened. It definitely happened. Be careful with your ovens, everyone.
Is it they who hit the button, or they who left the grease on the floor of the oven after cooking the turducken?
They might be the same person.
Oh, okay. Oh, man.
It was just, one of those brain fart moments that you just don't, you're just like, oh, I got the kids, and I forgot I needed to clean the oven. Let me just hit the button real fast. And then I got a message while I was recording with them, and it was, the oven's smoking really bad. And I didn't know why. I was like, well, turn it off. I don't like she's like, no, it's real bad. I was like, okay, I better go in the house. And it was real bad. I opened all the window, got the oven shut off, got it, the smoke to stop smoking.
Scary.
Yeah. Well, and it's protein smoke. So,
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. It's stinky.
And I opened all the windows, and I was just like, well, go to mom and dad's, because I'm going to have to call the restoration company. And I went back out and finished the podcast.
Yeah. I mean,
It's like, what else am I going to do at this point? Like, I'll talk to you in another half hour, because there's nothing we can do at this point.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Anyway, self-cleaning oven adventures.
Yeah. Be careful.
Tangents. That's what this show does best. So you found out about this guy modifying his oven. Mm-hmm.
And he just went so deep on, he got into sourdough. He was tracing the different bacteria strains, and all this stuff that I still don't even really get. And anyway, I just thought it was so cool, and I just kept going. I just kept practicing, just kept making pizza. I think it just became a really strong hobby of mine for a lot of years, and just followed me throughout the next 10 odd years of my life as I was not owning a pizzeria.
What were you doing at the time?
Let's see. At the time, I was working for Apple.
Okay.
I wanted to be a Mac genius. I thought that was the coolest thing, to be the one that fixed the computers or whatever.
It's kind of cool.
It was, yeah. I mean,
cool.
It's kind of cool. Yeah. Took me a while. I kind of worked my way up to that position. But when I got there, they I don't know if they still do this, but they were flying everybody out to Apple headquarters to go train and learn all about the inner workings of the computers and all this confidential whatever stuff, and saw Steve Jobs. That was insane. It just was a cool experience. But got to a certain point where it was a little bit, I don't know, just the corporate thing and the corporate language, and it can be kind of culty and we're the best, and just a whole different mindset, I think, that you have to be in if you're really gonna grow with them. And I just I couldn't do it.
I get it.
Yeah. But in the meantime, by then, my wife and I had we'd been married by then. We had moved to New Haven, Connecticut, because she got into the Yale School of Forestry for a master's program, which is cool.
Yeah.
But also New Haven, Connecticut, you know where I'm going with this.
I do.
Yeah. Like basically the unsung pizza capital of the country.
Starting to get sung.
Yeah. Starting to get sung. Yeah. So really, really great pizza out there. I just kept kind of hobbying away for a while, but then
Which one's your go-to? We can't skip over.
I think I'm a Sally's.
Okay. Yeah. That's a trip I still haven't made. Shout out to the Balkan Brothers who were on this podcast. They're a band from the area, pizza fiends. They're like, you come out, we're going around. Nice. I have even another shout out. Listener Eric sent me a Frank Pepe shirt that I wear all the time. I feel like a little bit of a poser.
No, it's just, it's a tribute. Yeah.
But I'm like, I've never been to Frank Pepe's, but it's like, name 3 songs when you're wearing the band shirt. I'm like, I can't.
You're right.
But I will. I will one day.
White clam pie, tomato pie. No, I don't.
There's some white clam pies. That's true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get there. Anyway, so you're Sally's guy and you're in New Haven.
And we're in New Haven. I got a gig making wood-fired pizzas on the Yale farm.
There was a farm?
Yeah, there's this urban farm project that actually was started sort of in partnership with Alice Waters, famous chef from California. Her daughter, I think, was going to the school and she was like, why don't you have a farm here? This is ridiculous. So they started a farm. Cool. And there's a wood-fired pizza oven on the farm, and every Friday after harvest days, they would cook pizzas. And me, still on my pizza journey, trying to find the best way to bake a pie and stuff, I was really trying to I think I was just frustrated that I didn't have an oven that got as hot as a real pizza oven. So having access to a wood-fired pizza oven, I was like, ooh, let me get in there. Yeah. Ended up being the Friday pizza guy for a little bit. And I think around then I just was getting much more excited in food and cooking and baking. And I had started working for Apple in Albuquerque, but out there I was working at another Apple store, but it was an hour train ride away.
Okay.
And it was just a whole thing. So eventually I was like, all right, this is not going to work out for me. I'm going to just start trying to get into food. I had felt so passionately about it. I was like, I think I maybe want to own a restaurant one day or be a chef or whatever. Again, my dad being so supportive and encouraging of everything was well, let's check out culinary schools, and got me books on how to write a business plan and stuff like that, which was really cool. And I looked into culinary schools and went and checked out some places, and it's so expensive.
Oh, yeah.
It was so expensive. And my wife was like, why don't you just try to get a job in a restaurant and see if you like it, maybe?
Probably a good idea.
Yeah. So yeah, I was like, all right, let me try and do that. And yeah, found myself working at a cafe where I was able to do the morning baking of muffins and scones and cookies and stuff. And then also picked up another part-time job at a German bread bakery. And I don't know, I think from there things just started moving really fast for me. That excitement and sort of obsession just grew and grew. And I sort of picked up this mindset of well, I need to just absorb everything. And I need to work every restaurant job there is, every type of, position or whatever in a restaurant, and get as familiar as possible with this so that when I'm ready to do my thing, I'm prepared or whatever. And yeah, I think it was the hardest to break into line cooking, without I don't know, any line cook job, I feel they want you to have line cooking experience. So,
Right. It's a little catch-22 there.
Yeah. And so just along this journey, I think I developed skills of going through all these jobs and trying to like kind of advance to like interview really well. And yeah, finally like kind of talked my way into a line cook job, and was like, all right, like now I get to sort of, you know, build myself up in the kitchen. And at that point, my wife Amy finished her grad program and got a fellowship at Portland State University.
Okay.
And we had been to Portland a few times, had friends out there, out here, and such a food-oriented town. I was just like, yeah, let's go, you know? Was really excited. And got out here, thought it would be like the most badass thing that I could do as a cook in Portland was cook brunch. So
about what year is this?
This was 2012.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like when brunch really was starting to pop off.
It was like Portlandia,
Yep.
you know, times.
Good times.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I miss those times.
Things were better then. But yeah, just, you know, kept kind of working and grinding, and
Were there any spots you can drop? Because I've lived here forever, so
yeah.
there's a few spots.
my first job was like working the brunch line at Bread and Ink Cafe on Hawthorne.
Yeah.
It was pretty wild. Very interesting experience.
I may have ate some of your food then.
You might have. Yeah, they had like the waffle window attached.
Definitely.
And oh my gosh.
I think they still do. I think.
Yeah, totally. And so, but for brunch, we would have like chicken and waffles.
Yeah.
So we would still get the waffles from there. And for whatever reason, to make it nice on the plate, you'd have to like trim off like the edges of the waffles to make them perfect squares or something. I ate those waffle ends like constantly all day long, every day. But yeah, after almost a year or so of that, I sort of found out through our extended friend network about this place that was about to open and was hiring. And I was trying to like, I wanted to get into like fine dining, I guess. And long story short, interviewed really well and got a job at Ava Jeans when they first opened.
Yeah.
And that was wild. I was not cut out. Like I didn't have the chops to like be working there.
Sure.
But I learned so much, and it was like still just like, or just left a huge impression on me, I think. But it was really, really stressful. I think because I was just in over my head. I'm sure it was stressful for everybody who was working there who knew what they were doing too. Just being a brand new place. And I think it was like, got all the best new restaurant things right away.
I remember that.
Yeah. And anyway, I was just like coming home from work every day feeling so like beat down and just like exhausted and worn out. And my wife, the smart one, was like, hey, like you're making pizza all the time at home, like on your days off, on your weekends, like you're making pizza, you're staying up late at night, working on your like dough formula spreadsheets and stuff. Like, why don't you go get a job at a pizzeria and just like, you know, see if you have a good time. Like, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't think it was like a serious enough job or whatever. And yeah, I was like, that's not gonna like move me forward in my career or whatever. And she was like, it doesn't matter. Like you're totally burnt out. Like you need to just go work somewhere and maybe it'll be like fun and you can figure out what you want to do. And so I did that. I had read about this place on the pizza blogs called Handsome Pizza.
Uh-huh.
And I just rolled up one day, and it was like a chill, sort of like afternoon. Met the owner, Will, and just kind of had a pizza. And he came and like sat down with me, and we just chatted. And I told him that I would love to work in a pizza place like this place I really liked. And before I knew it, was kind of like filling in some shifts when people were out of town, and then, picking up more regular shifts. And as soon as I started like really spending time at a pizza shop, it just was really clear to me. It was like, oh, this is actually the thing.
That's
like,
what I want to do.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. It was like a light switched on or something. And
was it a particular moment, or just slowly building up as you worked here more?
I think it was really early on, and especially at that place. This was Handsome Pizza. So, so a couple years after I started there, they used to be on this like lot in like an old like auto shop, and it got torn down and like developed. So they had to move into a different space, and that was when they opened up on Killingsworth and 15th, and it was called Handsome Sea Star, like Handsome Pizza and Sea Star Bakery. And so this is before that, in their like sort of first iteration, which was just teeny tiny, a wood-fired oven. The thing that blew my mind about it was that Will was making big 18-inch pies in a wood-fired oven.
Oh, yeah, you don't see that super often.
Yeah. And I was like, wait a sec, like a big pie. And he was doing slices, he would just like warm them up kind of like right in the oven door. And it just, like, I had never considered that was like a thing that you could, like two styles that you could combine, the sort of like wood-fired sort of Neapolitan thing, which I was really interested in and fascinated by, but then the like sort of New York big pie slice thing, which is what had so much meaning to me, and I was just like, oh my God, I think, not only is pizza really my thing, but also like this is sort of like my style. And Will was just like such a, like, I don't know, just welcomed me in so much, and was just like such a mentor, and just like from day one kind of asked me like, so what's your pizza place going to be like?
Oh, wow.
I was like, really? I don't know.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Maris Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations and 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services. And it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. Did he say that to everybody, or he saw something in you?
He said that to everybody. Honestly, like it was a small crew of all of us who worked there, but we were all like really into pizza.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
Special
I think
crew.
that helped.
Yeah.
And everything just started to make sense. I like learned only around that time through my wife asking my dad questions, because I had never thought to ask questions about like our family and stuff. I didn't know that we were like part Italian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Until like 2014 or something,
Wow.
Yeah. I remember he texted me. I was like, wait. Oh, and I was asking him like, where in Italy is our family from? And he was like, I think somewhere by Naples.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my God.
It's in the DNA.
Crazy. Yeah. It was like, yes, we are pizza positive.
Tested positive for pizza.
Yeah. So it just made sense. And I was still like part-time there, but got another job also working part-time at East Gleason Pizza, which opened, I think, maybe 2014. And just had a blast working there. Got to like bring in my sourdough from home to like help kind of like set up their pizza recipe, because they were brand new. And just kept learning so much so fast. And it just kind of became really clear that was it. And before I knew it, I think I was like starting to write a business plan and think about a concept and do a lot of research into like what it takes to run a pizzeria or a restaurant in general.
It's a rough gig.
Oh, yeah, to put it very mildly.
It is a very tough business to be in.
Very tough.
The restaurant business is a very, I mean, I don't think it's something, I think now people understand it a little bit more as far as the difficulties, but even back in like 2012, 2014, I feel like people still didn't fully, the general public wasn't aware. They're just like, it's a restaurant. You go into a restaurant, give me food.
Yeah.
How hard can it be? But it's really challenging.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
Was it harder than you expected once you actually started, when you took the wheel? Or was it about what you imagined?
Unfathomably harder than I ever could have expected. Yeah. I mean, I think especially as like an independent operator, like everything that it is like literally like you have to do and like put into it. And there's so many moving parts, there's so many little details, so many things happening every single day. And it was a very long time that I kind of went through just feeling like there are not enough hours in the day. Like I can't keep up. Like this is not possible, but I just kept getting up the next day and going back to it, I mean, again, as like an independent, like it was my wife and I's like life savings and like a business loan that got us into it. And it was like, failure was not an option, literally. Like that was it. If that didn't work, like, it would have been really, really bad. Yeah. So, yeah.
I can relate. I get it.
There's a lot that goes into it. Yeah. But,
so at what time frame did you make the leap?
Yeah. So, it was 2015. So it was really like, I want to say maybe a year and a half or 2 years only after I like first started working at a pizzeria. That we like opened,
And that place on Division for we're turning this somewhat into the local Portland podcast here, but like it was in that original spot there.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And that was just like, I had felt like I'd been researching and planning, and there was sort of like nothing left to do to like visualize or whatever, except for maybe like finding a spot. And yeah, we just did it. It just felt right.
Just like, here we go, leaping in, both feet.
Definitely. And I remember before we opened, like just wondering like, gosh, like I'm in, even just as we were getting set up, I had never made a pizza in the kind of oven that I like decided to get.
What did you get?
So, okay, backtrack.
All
the
right.
guy with the blog with the cleaning cycle oven guy.
Yeah.
He eventually opened a pizzeria in Atlanta.
Of course he did.
It's called Verrazano's. And the oven that he got...
Where?
Atlanta.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
Somewhere over there.
Somewhere. I mean, I think he's got a small location in the airport now. So, yeah.
Cool.
You can find it. But yeah, I think I was like reading an interview with him or something and found that he had chosen this Pizza Master oven that was made in Sweden and was just this like sort of obscure electric deck oven that was like, he liked it because it got really hot basically. And he liked an electric oven because that's what he had been baking in at home.
And you too.
And me too. And so I was like, well, I think that's probably it, you know? And I had never seen one. Like, I just decided, like, that's it. Like, he's the guy. He knows. And yeah, I like bought this oven and, you know, was just like,
it's not a real way to like try that out first.
No,
not really.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there are ways, like if I definitely could have found a way to try one out. But I don't know. It was
just
a
ready to
strange
go.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was ready. I was like, let's get it. Come on. It really like, I didn't think about any other oven. It was just like, that's it. But when the time came, I was like, oh my God, I've never made a pizza in this thing. Like, I hope it works. And you know, same day, even just like before opening, it was like, whoa, like what if people don't like my pizza? Like, I'm just making pizza that I like, but what if nobody else likes it? You know? Yeah, it was a crazy time.
Very, very similar to you're about to drop that album, right?
Oh yeah.
You're like, I love this. A lot of people might not.
Totally.
There's been, lots of records that people have made that most people didn't appreciate very well.
Yeah. You have no idea how something's going to be received when you put it out there. And I think it takes a certain type of person. You have to be like maybe a little bit crazy.
A little bit,
you know? But especially to kind of be able to like just put not just yourself, but your like expression out there. I think it's like a very personal thing, you know?
Yeah. And I don't fully agree with this, but I kind of understand where it comes from, where people talk about, usually in a musical context, because a lot of people record lots of stuff and no one else ever hears it. And some people say, well, it's not really, art until other people get to absorb it and take part in it. And I can understand where that's coming from. I don't necessarily agree with it for a few different reasons.
Sure.
But this with food in a restaurant, the whole thing takes so much thought. I mean, unless you're opening a Chili's, then there's a formula.
Right.
But and that has its own challenges. But it's not the same thing as something that you have thought about and obsessed over and, agonized over every little detail. Not just the food, like the layout and like how do I want people to feel when they come in and look at this particular angle, and when you're sitting here, and there's so many different aspects to it.
Yeah,
that all go into how somebody feels when they leave the place, and there's really no other way to experience that other than to create it and see what happens.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because I mean, restaurants it's controlled chaos is really what it is. You know, like you can only plan and like prepare for so much, and like try your best to like set yourself up for success. But every single day is going to be different. Every person that walks through the door is different. Right. But yeah, it's funny how like so much of just like those things about a place, you know, I guess I'm specifically thinking about like my place. It's just about what we had to do to make it work.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I kind of know how to make this pizza the way I want to. And what else needs to happen?
How
I guess
do I make it at scale? You know, how do I make it, you know, in a system that makes sense so it's always available or available as quickly as possible?
Yeah.
How do I satisfy demand? If we are successful, how do we keep up with demand? Which is a good problem to have, but something you've had to navigate.
Totally. Yeah. And it's interesting now, like, I mean, we're coming up on 8 years in. And so looking back at like the trajectory of the business, like that I think is a key thing, like the demand aspect of the business, because once you're doing once you turn this thing that you like doing like into a business, suddenly there's all this other responsibility that comes with it.
Yes.
And that comes with a lot of pressure. And so I think as a young, inexperienced business owner, I was just kind of like doing what I thought, you know, just made a business good or healthy. And so if there was demand, if we were finding that like, oh, people were like having to wait a long time for pizzas because we were making so many and the orders got, you know, pushed out in times or whatever, I was like, oh, well, we got to figure out how to make more pizzas and make pizzas faster and all this stuff. And so we're not turning people away. And I think that was probably like my biggest mistake, was like leaning more into the business side of it than the actual like sort of like purpose of and like expression of like what I was doing. I think because it just created all these other challenges.
So you were trying to sell to everybody that wants one, instead of, if I'm understanding you correctly, instead of, you know, keeping up, like making it to a level that you could maintain, you know, and keeping it there.
Yeah. Just like recognizing like what is a healthy capacity to operate at, you know? And how do you then, you know, maintain that in the sense of like not getting pulled beyond that. So I think that turned a lot into like learning a lot of different ways to say no.
Sure.
And just, yeah. It's been a very interesting, like, sort of adventure and journey of discovery, I think, all along the way. I think I'm just grateful that I did develop and still have like a deep interest in the business side of things, more just from like a mathy problem solving like standpoint.
Yeah.
So that kind of really keeps me engaged and excited about that side.
When did you know it was time to open another location? Oh God. I think this can apply to, you know, there's a lot of people who listen to this that run guitar gear companies and have small pedal companies and other things. And some of them have gone through this same period that you're talking about, where it's like, okay, I can't get one to everybody that wants one. So they're having to let off the gas on certain aspects, you know. So I guess the bigger question would be, how do you know when it's a good time to expand, which is essentially what the second location is?
Totally. That's a really good question. So I felt relatively early on that we needed to expand, but that again was like, young, naive Scott, thinking like, oh, like we need another spot. We could sell so many more pizzas, and like that's all good for business. And at the time, like that mindset was really just causing me to like take on all these other things that took so much more work and cost more money too, and weren't even really like bringing in more money, if that makes sense. It's almost like the
brings
rate
in
of
more
return,
revenue, but at the end of the day, you're not making any more net.
Yeah, because you have to
profit.
like work so much harder, and everything has to work so much harder in order to hit that, like achieve that level of volume. So the equation wasn't like working out for a long time.
Sure.
There. But that said, I did put some time into sort of like visualizing, like, okay, what would that look like? What would the, business plan for number 2 look like? And stuff like that.
What I learned from number 1.
Exactly. And started to like look for locations and got pretty darn close to like picking a spot. And then COVID came along.
That thing.
Yeah. And so like hard reset.
Hit you guys harder and faster than any other industry by a long.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, hospitality in general, I guess I should
Yeah,
say.
no, restaurants for sure. It was really heavy. And I think it just changed everything. And so we were suddenly in like survival mode. What do we need to do to like keep the lights on, but also like, are we going to be okay? Like, is anybody going to be okay?
The big question. Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, just coming back to like failure not being an option. My wife Amy and I just kind of just got to work, and just put our heads down, and we were grinding there for a good couple years straight of just like making enough pizzas to like keep the bills paid, basically. Right. But what we found, I think we just like learned a lot in that time. We learned about coming back to that like capacity. We learned, okay, what's our capacity as such a small shop now that we've like fully shrunken down to like bare necessities. And I think we started to find that operating in a smaller way allowed us to be more efficient in a lot of ways. So we started to kind of just like get better at it, I think. Making pizzas, keeping things organized, keeping the quality really consistent. Like I think it was interesting because like at the time of COVID, I was like in this sort of big picture position where I was just managing all of these moving parts. But then deep COVID, I was like going in, turning the lights on, mixing the dough, like
Hands
making
on.
all the pizzas, and then sweeping and mopping at the end of the night, and being able to like be so engaged with that and not having to worry about anything else, I was like, that was all we had to do.
Right.
And I was able to just like think a lot more about it and kind of like tweak almost like everything that I touched all the time.
Because you touched everything that was happening.
Yeah. And it was like just everything could sort of change on the fly. So I think we just really adapted really well. And at the same time, since we were kind of just in this sort of like, what is the, what's that sort of like point that we need to like hit that's like manageable for us in our human capacity, and keeps the business alive. We found this incredible like work-life balance that suddenly existed. I think for the first time, because with the shop open less days, like not open 7 days a week. It just made such a difference. I think like for me, like when the shop was open, I was there. And when I wasn't in the shop wasn't open.
Right.
And that
So you
just
didn't
like,
have to think about it when you weren't there.
yeah, it kind of like did wonders for like my mental health, to be fully honest, you know? And just like stress level.
You're like,
and
no one's
everything.
there, no one's messing anything up, nothing's happening. Like no customers are screaming. There's nothing happening.
I'm not going to get the call about the pipe that burst or whatever, or the equipment that broke down.
The cheese grater that needed
oh my goodness. So just, you know, a lot really changed about, I think, just like my own relationship to the business. And things suddenly felt a lot more manageable. And I feel like we were really able to like dial things in a way where previously it had felt more like a runaway train.
Yeah.
like I wasn't running a business, the business was running me. You know, it was like I just went and did whatever needed to be done. I felt much more like, oh, this is like a thing that we're doing, and it's a much more active thing. I don't know.
We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby, because let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Good Hertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblinssaudio.com. I think you're going to like what you find.
Well, there's this thing, and I don't know. There's multiple ways to think about it, but you hear people say things like working on your business, not working in it, as a way of talking about achieving the other end of that. Like, so you know, like there's this middle ground that everybody has to hit, especially with anything physical products wise, like where you're in it no matter what.
Right.
You know, when you're first starting to this middle point, there's just no way of not having your hands on it and your foot on the gas. It's impossible.
Totally.
And then there's the other side of it when you've grown it to a point where you can have somebody else kind of managing that and you go back to big picture. So that's one side of it. But then there's the other side where it sounds like you're at now, and where a guy by the name of Analog Mike, who runs Analog Man Pedals.
Nice.
He was on the show for several years ago. Now, he's one of the most in-demand pedal builders out there. But he, like you, has went, how big do I want this to be? I want it to be this big. I've got employees that have worked for me for X number of years. I don't want any more of them. I don't want, not because he doesn't like music. I don't want any more to manage. This is great. We all get along. We all have the same goals. We can take good care of each other. And if my wait list goes up to 5+ years, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which it's kind of frustrating to some consumers. Like, I got to wait 5 years for an overdrive pedal. Like, if that's what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, like you don't have to.
You don't have to.
You have a choice.
Yeah, there's other options.
Yeah.
But if you want that one,
exactly,
that's what you're gonna have to do. And that's, I think, to me, like, knowing he knew his limitations, or at least where he wanted them to be. And I think that's something that a lot of business owners get. Like I said, the business starts running you. You're like, well, I can sell this many more. I can sell this many more. Oh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Now that's all fine and dandy, but I do think you need to have an out. And I don't necessarily mean you need to sell the business, but you need to be able to have a point at which you're not doing that anymore, because no one can do that forever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's totally unsustainable.
Yeah.
I just couldn't.
Everyone has to do it at some point, but you can't do it forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's totally right. I think just finding that balance, like I think by sort of working smaller, I was able to be in it, but then also still have the time and capacity outside of it to work on it.
Yep. I get it.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough thing. One thing that's big for me, and a reoccurring thing that comes up on this podcast, is self-awareness. And it's just because I didn't have enough of it for a long time, and sometimes I still don't. But at least as far as goals and what you're doing on a day-to-day, I think a lot of people don't realize why they're not stoked on something.
Yeah.
Because they just get stuck into a certain pattern without realizing that's the thing. Like, your wife was like, you like pizza. Bro, you like pizza.
Yeah.
Oh, I do like pizza. You're right.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I like music gear. That's what I really love, and pizza, but not enough to run a pizzeria, and just enough to eat lots of it and talk about it all the time.
But you like gear enough to get into that. Right?
Exactly. And
so.
It's like finding that thing. And it might be, it's different things for different people. It might be accounting for somebody.
Right.
Some people really like crunching numbers. I've met these people. I don't understand these people, but they really like doing taxes. It could be anything. It doesn't matter what it is, but finding that thing, and because it takes all types for society to even function. It takes a guy who likes doing taxes.
Totally.
We have to have him.
Yeah.
You know, and the more people that can, you know, maybe stop, you know, insert job they don't like here, it doesn't matter what it is, and work towards something that does excite them, no matter what that is. I think that's how we win as a society, is by getting more people to do the thing that at least they like. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be the person on stage, but maybe you really like running sound.
Right.
You know, like whatever it is, there's all kinds of angles. And I think the more people that can find those particular pieces that they like, and that can change, doesn't have to be one thing.
Yeah.
But trying to find that is important. And it's cool to see somebody like you who's taken this random passion for that, like you've spent time on internet forums obsessing over, to now a full-fledged thing that is like well known as one of the best spots in town. Everybody knows, like, that's the place you go. You know, there's like 5 places, and Scotties is one of them.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
Still just trying to make a pizza that I like, you know.
You brought a good one today.
Yeah, that one's pretty good. So yeah, I don't know. I think looking at the like expansion side of it, it's interesting to me. I think a lot. I think personally, I think we were all going through a lot in those like 2020, 2021.
Traumatic.
Right?
Everyone, no matter how you feel about anything during that time, we were all really getting hammered.
Yeah. And I think it changed us all, you know? And I think that, I just think like a lot of my perspective and ideas changed about what I want to do and how I see my future. And I don't know. It was interesting because like at first when Amy and I were just like head down, grinding, just make the pizzas, but we're only making the pizzas 4 days a week. We got 3 days to live, you know?
Right.
We were like, this could be it. Let's just keep it like this. Like,
I mean, that's
so simple.
Yeah.
You know, it's like suddenly, like numbers wise, the business was like checking out. Like we weren't just barely making it. It was like, oh, we're like making an income and this like seems like it's working, which is wild. And yeah, we were like, let's just do this. But then, you know, a year later, we were like, I don't know if we can do this forever.
And some people can. We've seen that.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
The old Italian guy out there, like doing his thing. Like,
Exactly.
you know, it exists.
Yeah.
But that came to different time periods. That made sense for a while.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. I don't know if I can do this forever.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to shift gears a little bit.
Yeah.
It's okay to change your mind.
Yeah. Well, and I think a thing that another piece to it is that we had simplified so much. You know, we had kind of like cut a lot from what we were as a business in order to do it so small. And I mean, even shortly before the pandemic, we had like remodeled the shop and kind of like busted out a large part of our dining room just to make our kitchen bigger. Again, just trying to like hit demand. Bad moves. I wouldn't have done it the same.
I remember when that happened. I was like, oh,
yeah.
I guess I'll go outside.
Right?
Yeah.
And so now here we were in a pandemic with a shop that was mostly kitchen, which was good because it's not
During
like we
that
had
time.
a dining room
Yep.
that we had to worry about. But like we also just didn't, it's just like we didn't have the place that I think I had always wanted to have. And so eventually my mind started to kind of drift back to like, well, you know, I like how we're doing this, but I kind of wish we were doing it in like the proper sized space and able to like do, you know, our full menu and like concept and like pizza by the slice, which is really important to me. It's what I grew up eating. But we like couldn't do that anymore just because of how things work now. And I think that was sort of what drove me to looking for another spot. And I still don't see it so much as like, oh, I'm like growing I don't feel like it's an active, like I'm growing a business. I feel like, no, we just like, we needed to get like the spot where we could like do what we wanted to do. So this like new shop in Northwest Portland is like, you know, it's got like a nice sized dining room. We've got tables outside. We've got like the nice like counter with the pizza slice display, and we can get you a slice right there. And we've got enough room to move around and like prep everything and have like, you know, beer on tap. We have a Aperol Spritz on tap right now, which is really fun.
Nice.
Like, you know, there's just like a lot more like breathing room. I mean, that first shop is honestly not much bigger than the shred shed.
No, it's not.
So
It's not.
Yeah.
And I work in here by myself.
Yeah. So I think that's where what I wanted, and I feel really happy with it now. Yeah,
I like it. I like it. This flew by.
yeah, it
like,
did. My
wow.
goodness.
There were so many more things to talk about. I guess we'll have to talk about it some, you know, on Patreon, and maybe we'll have you come back sometime. We'll just dive down the rabbit hole. Then I can talk you into, you know, I'll go outside and you can nerd out on pedals for a while. And then
Right?
we can come back and talk pedals for a while.
Yeah.
But man, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. And
Yeah, me too.
excited to see what we get into on Patreon. It's going to get weird, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm down. Thanks so much for having me. This is great.
Well, I got a few more classic questions to wrap this up on.
Yeah.
And before I do, I like to give the guests a chance to take the floor. You know, you're talking to a few thousand people right now. You can shout out whoever you want to shout out. You can plug anything you want to plug. You can, say hi to your grandma, whatever it is. The floor is yours.
Oh my goodness. Well, I have to shout out my friend Scott Wiener.
Yeah.
Who's a big part friend. Of why I'm here. I love it. We had our own sort of like pizza and music connection. And he just had a baby. So I just want to say congratulations, Scott.
Yeah. And for everybody, if you didn't catch Scott's episode, there's a lot of Scotts getting thrown around here right now. Scott Wiener's episode, he's from Scott's Pizza Tours. Go back and listen to that episode. We talk extensively about how he started that business and got into that side of things. And, he has a very musical background as well. And he mentioned a road trip that this Scott took with him. And that's why we're here. Because go back and listen to that episode. It'll all make sense. I don't want to explain it. Go back and listen. If you got this far, you'll enjoy that one as well. Cool.
Nice.
All right. Classic questions. First one, what is your favorite Boss pedal?
Oh my goodness. Okay. I didn't have a lot of pedals, but I did have the Blues Driver.
Yeah.
I really liked that one. I felt like it was really versatile and like, I don't know. It just,
I feel like it's a little bit, it gets a little bit overlooked by myself and also for its name. It's like, Blues Driver. I don't really play blues.
Exactly.
But it's so much more than that.
Yeah, it really is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was fun. I enjoyed that one.
Blues Driver's great. Absolutely. Okay, final question, and this is going to be an interesting one because obviously you make pizza.
Uh-oh.
And I ask this of every guest. But what is your favorite pizza?
Oh my goodness.
This isn't even fair to ask you this. I understand.
Well, hold on. That's a very general and vague question.
Well, right now, it could change in 2 seconds, but
what is your favorite, topping combination on pizza? What's your favorite pizzeria?
I tell people to get as specific as they want to get. Is what I tell people to get. Yeah. Like if you had to have a pizza, like if somebody was like, "This is your final pizza," and you will go to the great pizza oven in the sky.
Wow.
Like what are you gonna be the last pizza? And like I said, that can change tomorrow.
Yeah.
But right now, in this moment.
Okay. In this moment.
Yeah.
I will say I've been thinking about this one a lot lately. There's a place in Berkeley called Emilia's Pizzeria. It is a one-man band of sorts.
All right.
This guy, Keith, makes
pizzas in a looper pedal. And keeps them going. Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Okay.
He lays down the dough, loops that, lays down the sauce.
Tap tempo. Yeah.
No, he makes an incredible pie. He has done some like oven hacking of his own, and whatever magical combination of all his little details that he brings to it. I often say it's my favorite pizza in the country. I could really go for just a regular house pie from there.
All right. What's all in the house pie?
It's just like a nice cheese pie. A little bit of basil,
sometimes.
Fresh mozz, aged mozz, the sauce, maybe some herbs,
In Berkeley.
some olive oil.
All right.
Yeah, so good.
All right. Now I'm going to ask you a secondary question because we're local here. So in Portland or Portland metro area, outside of your own shop, who should, I know we got a lot of Portland listeners, so who should people check out? Maybe somebody, this is a better question. Underrated Portland metro area pizza.
Oh man. Okay. Well,
because I think Ken's is amazing, but everybody knows about it.
Yeah. And been around forever.
Yep.
Yeah.
But who needs a little love?
No, there's a lot of good, relative newcomers in town. Oh gosh, it's usually, so my thing is I wish I used to get out for pizza more often. I don't so much anymore.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. But now when I go out, it's to a spot I've really been meaning to get to, And so these days, I feel like at any given moment, if you ask me like what's my favorite pizza in Portland, it's going to be the most recent one I had.
That counts.
Because
yeah.
I keep like going to another spot and going like, oh, I think this is my favorite in Portland.
I do the same thing. I don't get up to Portland as often as I used to. So I'm usually there, and then I'll be like stuck like in one place all day. And so it's kind of in Southeast. So I'm either going to your spot if I want pizza,
Nice.
or somewhere within a few blocks of Mill Street, or within a relatively quick driving distance of Mill Street. So
okay.
but yeah, who would be?
All
I
right.
guess maybe the last one you had then.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
Last week, I finally made it to the newly opened sort of like new location. It was open, closed for a bit, opened in a new location in St. John's called Gracie's.
I keep hearing about Gracie's. I've not made it yet.
So good.
Okay.
I'm good friends with Craig, who owns it, and actually went in good company with friend Odie, who owns Boxcar Pizza.
Oh, very nice.
On Sandy. He also makes an incredible crust. He's doing Detroit style pizza, and it's all vegan, and he does all his like vegan stuff in house. Incredible flavor combinations and stuff. So good. I honestly like those are probably my top two in Portland. Gracie's was awesome though. We had a great time. The dough is like just exactly what it needed to be, and I feel like his like menu and topping combinations and stuff are just like really well put together, and just really good ingredients and stuff that it's like I don't like food that makes you think too hard.
Okay.
But I do appreciate that slight like pause that comes when you're like, oh,
You're like, what's that? What is going on there? Yeah.
Yeah. Like whatever's happening, this is nice.
I might not even know what it is.
Yep.
Maybe I don't want to know.
Don't really care.
Yeah.
It's delicious. Yeah.
I feel that.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah. So Gracie's.
All right.
You got to
sounds
get
good.
up there.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Well, dude, thank you so much. This has been awesome. We'll slide over to Patreon and see what kind of nonsense we can get into.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, everybody. For Scott, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. There you have it, folks. Make sure you check out Scotty's Pizza Parlor online. Make sure if you're in Portland, you go and get yourself a pie from Scotty's Pizza Parlor. And if you want to hear more of this conversation, guess what? There is more. You just got to go to patreon.com/tonemob. And for $5 a month, you too will get extra bonus episodes beamed to your ears every single week. You'll help keep this thing going. You'll help support the show. And honestly, you'll get my undying gratitude. Thank you so much for everybody that has done that. I appreciate it immensely. Thank you to everyone who listens to this podcast, though. I know not everyone's in a position to be able to support monetarily. I appreciate that. I totally get it. But if you could do one thing for me, it doesn't cost you anything. If you could tell somebody about this podcast, this is the thing. I know I've asked for this a lot, but there is currently still no algorithm to push podcasts. It's all word of mouth. It's all up to you and myself. And that's really it. There's nobody else that's going to push this thing along. There is no easy way to discover these things. So please share this with somebody. If you could share it on your social medias, feel free to tag me. I would appreciate that. If you just want to tell somebody, though, just tell your friend. Tell anybody that you may, think that will listen to you for any reason whatsoever. I would really appreciate that. Thank you all for everything. I've got a lot more coming your way. I've got a lot of content to make. I'm running around like a maniac trying to get more. I'm actually headed to a festival this week to try to get more interviews. We'll see if that happens or not. It's all still kind of up in the air, as it always is when dealing with management. But yeah, lots of stuff coming. Thank you all for the support. I'll talk to you on the internet very soon. Bye-bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
This is the story of Whitney Houston,
This is the story of Kurt Cobain.
of George Michael, of Otis Redding, of Amy Winehouse, of Michael Hutchence, Bob Marley. This is the story of Prince,
It's a new podcast series.
about how they died, why they died, and why we're still talking about them so long after.
It's like nothing you've ever heard before.
It's storytelling.
But it's more than that, because rock stars,
They tell us how we feel. They change our mood,
they change the clothes we wear, the people we hang out with.
the way we remember things.
It's them who give us those ludicrous moments, the ones where you...
Jumping around, singing your heart out, feeling understood.
And it's those moments we'll help you remember, the ones you're thinking about right now.
That feeling
That feeling.
is coming soon from Crowd Network.
Just search for Death of a Rock Star on your podcast app.
And subscribe now.
Hey, this is Dewey Halpus, host of Peer Pleasure on the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. Join me each week as I explore another long-form conversation with one of your favorite musicians, actors, comedians, or creatives. From Chino Moreno of the Deftones, John Gorley of Portugal the Man, to Fat Mike from NoFX and Ian Mackay from Fugazi and Minor Threat, we go all over the map. From Fall Out Boy to Slayer, Peer Pleasure has it all. Check us out now on Sound Talent Media.